This walk is going to be useful to you. I'm going to hand you 4 things you can use for the rest of your life to tell whether the person on your TV is working for you or working for someone else. 4 tells. That's it. Once you know them, you'll spot them every night on the news, every debate, every campaign ad, every stump speech. If you missed the last 3 walks, my name is Scott. This is episode 4 of Philosophy Walking, and this is our 360-degree walk through Corsae. If you're new to 360 or the picture looks off, the description explains how to use it on each device. The YouTube app on your phone is best. The short version of the series is this. Competition is an engine. It has no conscience, and when you point it at something you don't own, it will burn that thing down to hit its target. Last walks we watched it aimed at nuclear weapons and at your paycheck. Today, we watch it aimed at your government. A little over 2,000 years ago, in the Roman Republic, there were 2 brothers named Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. Their family was one of the most prestigious in Rome. They could have lived out very comfortable political careers by playing the game the way the wealthy Senate wanted it played. Instead, they looked at what was actually happening to Roman citizens. Rome had been at war for generations. Its farmer soldiers had been away fighting. When they came home, they found that the wealthy had bought up their farms, often illegally, and turned them into massive estates worked by enslaved people captured in those same wars. The soldier citizens who had built the Republic had nowhere to go. They drifted to the city, unemployed and desperate. Tiberius, in 133 BCE, proposed a simple thing: enforce the existing law limiting how much public land any one person could hold, and redistribute the illegally held land to landless citizens. It was reform, not revolution. He was killed for it, beaten to death by a mob of senators and their clients in the street in the middle of Rome. His younger brother Gaius took up the cause a decade later. He was killed too. I bring the Gracchi up because their story contains all 4 tells. Once you see them there, you'll see them everywhere. Look at politics. Politicians compete for power. Media competes for attention. Parties compete for donations. Corrupt politicians often lie, who obfuscate the truth and call any of their opponents enemies. They say one thing but mean another, and make up issues to help their own standing. This combined with the fact that many of their positions' hidden agendas are to enrich themselves and their supporters, the rich, even though they might wrap it in PR speak, where they just answer a valid question by restating the question as an answer without saying anything, or completely spin what they say to not answer, or through rhetoric that inflames their supposed base. Politicians have 2 bases: the people and organizations and businesses that finance their campaigns and their constituents that they are supposed to represent. In competing for office and power, some politicians cater to the rich who they really care about, and the poorer masses who vote for them but don't usually get any gains from them in office. These corrupt politicians create the polarization of politics by riling up their base, usually against the other, and often creating issues where none exists. In so doing, these actions not only undermine their opponents, but have the effect of wreaking havoc on the state itself, making it harder to keep democracies stable. So, how do you spot one? Because they don't hand out badges, let me give you the 4 tells. The tell is usually in the gap between what a politician says and what actually happens. Watch what they do when nobody's looking. The votes on obscure bills, the amendments quietly added at 2 a.m., who they take meetings with. That's the real record. The speeches are for you. If someone's talking about protecting families but voting against school lunches, or talking about small business while writing tax breaks that only help companies with 100 lawyers, that's your answer. You don't need to know what's in their heart. You just need to know where the money went and who got helped. The Roman Senate never stopped talking about how much it revered the ancestral constitution. They also murdered elected tribunes in the street to defend their private landholdings. The gap between what they said and what they did was 2,000 years wide. PR speak has a sound to it once you know what to listen for. Watch for the answer that just rephrases the question. Why did you vote against the healthcare bill? Because I believe in healthcare that works for Americans. That's not an answer, that's a shape of an answer. I said America in that last example, but it's true of any corrupt politician anywhere. Same with words that sound like they mean something but don't. Common sense reforms, job creators, protecting our values. Ask which reforms, whose jobs, which values, and the whole thing dissolves. Real answers have specifics in them. Names, numbers, dates. Fog is a choice. The Roman senators had a phrase they used constantly, the way of the ancestors, mos maiorum. It sounded like tradition, dignity, wisdom. What it meant when they said it was, don't touch our land. It was PR speak in Latin in the Forum 2100 years ago. Now, the media does this too, because outlets compete for audiences the way politicians compete for votes, and one way to keep an audience is to say things that don't upset the priors they came in with. So some outlets, mostly right-leaning ones, quietly softened the language around climate. Human-caused climate change and heating became climate concerns. Climate crisis became changing weather patterns. Not because the science changed, because saying it plainly would cost viewers who didn't want to hear it. That's PR speak with a press badge on. And it happens on the other side too. In 2020 and 2021, mainstream outlets and the social media companies that amplified them treated the possibility that COVID-19 came from a lab leak in Wuhan as fringe, sometimes as misinformation to be removed. It wasn't fringe. U.S. intelligence has since assessed a lab origin as at least plausible, and some agencies now consider it the more likely explanation. But for a year and a half, saying it out loud could get you deplatformed. Different politics, same fog, same reason. Serving the audience's priors or the platform's political comfort instead of the audience's understanding? The point isn't that one side is worse. The point is that once an outlet is competing for attention, it has an incentive to lie by omission in whichever direction its audience prefers. The foretells work on the messenger too. Propaganda usually shows up as an enemy. Someone is coming for you, coming for your kids, coming for your country. Notice if the enemy keeps changing, but the solution stays the same. More power for the person telling you about the enemy. Notice if the crisis is always urgent and the details are always thin. Real problems have real details. Manufactured ones have volume. And when a politician needs you angry more than they need you informed, that tells you what the anger is for. The senators called Tiberius Gracchus a would-be king. In a republic that had thrown off kings 400 years earlier, calling someone a king was the ultimate slander. He wasn't trying to be a king. He was trying to give farms back to soldiers. But once you painted him as a tyrant, killing him wasn't murder, it was patriotism. And there's a smaller version of this that isn't political at all. Every local news broadcast competes for your attention against every other broadcast, and the way they compete is by making every thunderstorm sound apocalyptic, every crime feel like the neighborhood is falling apart, every routine event into breaking news. It's not partly cloudy with a chance of rain, it's storm tracker alert. A single burglary becomes a crime wave. Nothing is ever calm, because calm doesn't compete. That's a manufactured enemy too, just a smaller one. The politician manufactures a national enemy to consolidate power. The local news manufactures a hyper-local enemy, the storm, the criminal, the outbreak, to consolidate your eyeballs. Different scale, same trick. And the constant background hum of manufactured crisis is exhausting in a way that's designed to be exhausting. Tired people don't fact-check, they just keep watching. The last thing to watch is who they punish and who they protect. Every politician has to make trade-offs. That's the job. But watch the pattern. When it goes wrong for their donors, do they fix it? When it goes wrong for the people who voted for them, do they even notice? A politician who talks about the working class but only takes emergency action when banks are in trouble has told you who he actually works for. It doesn't take a conspiracy to see it. It just takes paying attention to the pattern instead of the performance. The senators who murdered the Gracchi were never prosecuted. The farmers whose land had been stolen never got it back. Punish the reformer, protect the wealthy. It's the oldest tell. None of the foretells work if you don't use them, so a few things worth doing with them. Notice, first, just notice. Every time a politician answers a question with the shape of an answer. Every time the enemy in the news keeps changing, but the solution stays the same. Every time a crisis has been urgent for 6 years running, notice it, even if only to yourself. The people who benefit from the fog benefit specifically from you feeling like you're the only one who sees through it. You aren't. Look at the record. Congressional votes are public. State legislative votes are public. Campaign contributions are public. The information you need to check whether someone is telling you the truth about their record is available for free. When someone tells you they're fighting for working families, look at their votes on the last 3 bills that actually affected working families. The record is the tell. And vote in the small elections. School boards, city councils, state legislatures, judicial races. That's where the foretells matter most, and where your vote weighs the most. Almost nobody shows up to those. Showing up is most of the game. If you recognize all of this, you probably understand that it happens way too often, and those are just a few examples of why competition aimed at power hurts. But politicians aren't the only ones playing this game. There's another player, one you interact with every single day, whose whole existence is built on competition, and who has gotten very, very good at making the harm invisible. And once you see the pattern in politics, you'll see it there too, because it's the same pattern. And I'll leave you with this. The Roman Republic died about 100 years after they killed Tiberius Gracchus. It didn't die from foreign invasion. It didn't die because Rome ran out of soldiers or gold or ideas. It died from the inside, from a wealthy class that refused to share, a political class that protected them, and a citizenry that got exhausted enough to stop paying attention. There are receipts on that. 2,000 years of receipts. Republics don't fall to the barbarian. They fall to their own senators, and the fall is quiet. Here's what I want you to hold on to before the next walk. The foretells work everywhere. The gap between words and actions. The fog of PR speak. The manufactured enemy. The pattern of who gets punished and who gets protected. Write them down if you need to, because they're the same foretells you'll be using in the next walk on a very different set of people in very different clothes with a very familiar smile. Next walk, the same playbook. How companies learned to poison you legally. It's not a metaphor. Come back for that one.